No. There, Mike. Good evening. Welcome to the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education regular meeting here at National Road for February the 20th, 2024. I call this meeting to order at 4:30 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Mr. Young.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Here.
Mrs. Clark,
Here.
Mrs. Lee,
Here.
Ms. Long,
Here.
Mrs. Wade.
Here. Introduction of guests, Mr. Emmer.
Nick Woodbridge, with the Zanesville from OSBA, Nate Sukas, Casey Jones, and various district and voting administration.
Great, thank you. This time I'm going to turn it over to National Road Principal, Mrs. Amsball. She will introduce her student leadership team.
I don't think I really need the mic, but I'll stand here. So good evening and welcome to National Road. We are so excited to be able to introduce our 23-24 student leadership team. This has been a team that was created a few years ago, and we've continued on that tradition, and they work really hard. So we're excited for them to be able to kind of show off a little bit of what they've done, a little snapshot of what they've done. I'm going to have Mr. Schreiber, assistant principal here at National Road, go ahead and introduce our ladies on our team.
Thank you. This is our third year for the student leadership team. Our members are Emmy Hitchens, which is her third year on the team. McKenna Caldwell, it's her second year on the team. Jaden Kabaki is her first year. Those are our 3 6th graders. And then for 5th grade, we have Athena Tuttle, it's her second year. And Nevaeh Johnson, it's her first year. And then we have 2 4th graders. We have Lola Luby, and then Jaden Holloway was unable to attend tonight. He's our only male on the team. So here is our 23-24 student leadership team.
This is our student leadership team presentation. I hope you enjoy. What is the student leadership team about? The leadership team is about hard work, kindness, and teamwork. The team is composed of 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students. These students work hard to improve our school. We are hardworking and we have great ideas to contribute to our school. How to become a member? Students will fill out an application and have teachers recommend them. When approved, students work on a speech, students present to fellow students, classmates vote on who they think the best candidate to represent our school is, then they will be on the student leadership team. Things we have accomplished. The leadership program has been making efforts to make this elementary school full of fun and learning. Here are some little things that we have done this year. First, we have done candy cane and Toodle grants. Then canned food drive, Veterans Day assembly, and we are holding a family sweetheart dance on Thursday. Next is the family ornament night, and lastly, we have done blessing bags. Little improvements. The leader of the week. Teachers pick a student that has been on good behavior all week. Bus notice challenge. Bus riders try not to get any bus notices or a prize. Lunch challenge. Try to get the class jeep to the finish line first. And we got new lunch tables, which are located over there. Future plans. Staff appreciation week is where we show our appreciation to our talent show. We are bringing back the talent show so parents can watch their kids show off their talents. Earth Day. We are going to have a day where we clean the trash in our student announcements. We want to have students do kids songs. We are honored to be able to present to you tonight. Thank you for watching our presentation and letting us present to you. We are going to keep working hard.
So like I said, that's just a little snapshot of everything that our student leadership team has accomplished this year. We never even have to double check that they're done the blessing bags. By the time we remember blessing bags, they're already passed out and ready. So these girls definitely take that responsibility to heart. Our sixth graders, we are planning on keeping them in this building next year. We're not letting them go. So, we won't be able to do it without them. So we're very appreciative and thank you for letting them present.
Jaden.
We need a scrunch. While people in the back row. Way to go, Valencia.
Right, there we go.
1, 2, 3. Thank you, girls. That was an awesome job. Our next information, we're going to go the Board of Education Semester Recognition Awards. Dr. Baker, have him.
Good afternoon. We're very happy to be able to present 3 awards this afternoon. We have a ZA representative, an OPSI representative, and a non-union representative. These awards are selected by the administrative team, both at the building district level. And essentially, we want to recognize our staff members that have gone above and beyond the call of duty in many, many ways. So without any further ado, we'll introduce them. First up, we can be honest. Next, we have Chad Newmont, our OT rep, and I don't think Chad here can get this done. And our non-union, it's Nate Seacast.
Then I'd like to all you come back.
Again. Oh.
Just for you, Jan.
Sure.
Come on, Dan. It's one
Here
year.
we go.
Really gonna be putting my arm around.
To it. You're good, 1, 2, 3.
We getting up again, I'll just stand.
I think we're good. It might be good now. Might be good now. Next, we're going to introduce Quinn Masinko, OSBA Board and Management Service Consultant, for some information for us. Oh, and by the way, if anybody needs to leave, your students, you're welcome to dismiss yourselves if you'd like. Thank you again for coming. Oh, right. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Quinn. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Gwen. Thank you.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thanks. Thank you.
Hi, Gwen. How are you? Yeah, again.
Good.
Thank you. Yes, yes, yes.
Here, is that fine?
Sure. Yeah, wherever you're comfortable, it's fine.
And I need to move this again, right?
You should be okay. Yeah.
First of all, I'm sorry, I'm gonna turn my back to you out here in the audience. I would like to thank you all here at Zanesville City Schools for having the Ohio School Boards Association out. I know that Laura had reached out to talk a little bit about our strategic planning services, what we offer with that at OSBA. So I'm just gonna give an overview of that tonight in about a 10 to 15-minute presentation, and you're welcome to ask questions throughout it, or also at the end as well, if you have something saving up. I have a handout in there of the presentation for you to follow along, or write down notes, or if you have a question for later at the end, please write it down, feel free to ask it once we get there. So, just to begin, what a strategic plan is, what it does, and a good metaphor for a strategic plan is that it's the whole pie. It contains everything, it contains multiple pieces, and when you look at the picture represented there, there are several plans that a school district has, and it has several facets, whether it's a communication plan, a facilities plan, when it comes to operations, transportation, curriculum. And what a strategic plan can do is assist in finalizing some of those separate plans and unify those together in some umbrella goals and some focus areas as well. But I also think what a strategic plan does is it builds on the current successes and the current work of the administration, and it's that, and you take that on to the next level, but be able to not just have new ideas, but building on those current successes with some tweaks and some improvements to move you all along and go into the next 3 to 5 years of the shelf life of a new strategic plan. So an excellent strategic plan includes these 4 facets. The first one is guiding the acquisition and allocation of limited resources. And you know your 2 limited resources for a school district are time and money as well. So it helps you prioritize a little bit with those goals. It helps you further along of where you can set priorities with your budget, where you can set priorities with your staff as well as when it comes to goals and allocating their time on a day-to-day basis. As I mentioned already, building upon those current successes, I have looked at your website, so you have the current strategic plan already in place. I know that it says that shelf life is coming up to an end this summer, so we can go ahead and take that on to a further level of what has already been there and accomplished within those goals that are in that current strategic plan. It also guides the district's decision-making at all levels, not just when it comes to the administrative team and the superintendent, also the teachers, but also to the Board of Education as well, because that aligns you with along with a vision and a mission, core values or guiding principles, and also those goal areas to focus around as well when it comes to making those big decisions here that come up to you and are recommended to you at the Board of Education level. And finally, serving as a roadmap for your future success and sustainability. Right, you're going to have a long way to get to accomplishing those goals. When you come together and make that strategic plan, and you're going to have stops along the way, but there might need to be adjustments to also still take that road and make sure that you accomplish those goals. But it's also a good guide and a good path for you to follow along as you look to have those big goals accomplished over the next 3 or 5 years. So when it comes to the process, what should be included in that? And first of all, it's build on the best work taking place within your district, and already current work and successes that have been going on. But importantly, it invites participation from your stakeholder groups as well. That includes, students, parents, teachers, classified union, administrative team, community members, their business owners, maybe fraternal organizations as well, representatives that can take to participate in the process and be able to have their voice heard and give their diverse perspective. As I go to my next point, it's important to have that diversity of opinion and perspectives because each person comes with a different lens about what they see that the school district can accomplish, and that's going to be beneficial to collaborating those conversations together to formulate a unified vision for all those different stakeholders. Also, utilizing facilitation to ensure those inclusive discussions are efficient and focused use of time as well, making sure that we have a good timeline and a good plan for each meeting that we have for the strategic plan. Make sure there are certain areas, tasks, goals that we're going to have for each 14 meeting, which I'll talk about what the details of those are in a second as well. And also result in a plan that is measurable for you as the Board of Education and build support and capacity for the district's vision and mission within the boundaries of those attainable resources, those that time and funding that you have here that is so limited. When it comes to working within an effective strategic plan, it allows you as board members with different perspectives to more easily find consensus because you now have that unified vision instead of you being 5 individuals. The board can actually come together, rally around those big goals and those focus areas that were created underneath the strategic plan. Thanks to collaboration of all the stakeholders that are out there. Also, it provides us consistent talking and messaging points for the community and staff members. It's important to know that it's good for a strategic plan to live with the superintendent, but also online as well, because it's a living document. And it's going to be able to create those talking points out for the community members as well. When they're able to do that work and it continues to adjust, to be able to make sure those goals are accomplished within its shelf life. And it also helps you when you get updates from the superintendent and the administrative team, you're out in the community, be able to speak to those talking points about what the progress is of the strategic plan and what you're looking to accomplish with it as well as the district. And again, assist administrators in forming and aligning the work plans down the chain of command as well. To be able, those big goals are able to go right down the chain of command from the Board of Education to the superintendent and treasurer to the administrative team, right down to the principals, and then the teachers and also classified staff as well. So all their work that they're doing day to day is going towards a one big unified vision. When it comes to the OSBA side, for the facilitators, typically when it starts out is one or both of us that will be assisting with the project, meets with the design team. And I'll talk a little bit about what the design team looks like as well. We've incorporated that in a couple of slides. And then there are also 2 at each board team meeting to help facilitate that discussion, making sure that we're efficient in the conversations that are being had, because the limited resource you have is time with coming with these meetings and making sure they're the most productive that they can be in order to get the most conversations out as possible towards forming that unified vision and those goals. Then there's a follow-up meeting once all the board team meetings have concluded. And now we want or both of us as well that are working on the project. And then in addition to that, we provide notes and collect feedback from the core team members between meetings. And what we do is we call these notebooks, but they're just actually binders. We will come through and we will take, just like board meeting, we'll take notes of everything that's happened, all the conversations. So then that is sent back out to everybody that's a member of the core team, both by email and also a hard copy is given to them as well at the next core team meeting that follows. In addition to any PowerPoints or any materials that are given ahead of time, those will be printed out as a handout as well. Then you keep those in those notebooks, those binders as they go through the 14 meetings. They're going to build off and keep all that material to refer back to as we keep moving on. Lastly, in the end, it's a nice product, a nice bow on it. It's a nice final brochure. It contains all the highlights of the strategic plan, what the core values are, the mission statement, vision statement, goal areas, goal statements. It's all decorated in your mascot, with cool colors and everything. And it's nice and presentable to put on the website. People can see that living document. I'd like to add, along with the facilitators, is that 4 of us are former school board members. So we've been in your seat before when it comes to strategic planning and understanding the view that you have. We also have a former superintendent as well. So they provide a view on that, where it comes to the day-to-day operations and taking that strategic plan and putting that into action. So looking at the process and what each of those teams there have, what their role is inside the process, what their purpose is as well. The design team is typically superintendent, usually another administrator, and sometimes a board member as well. And that's going to help set off and get the details ironed out before we get to the 14 meetings later on into the strategic planning process. And the design team helps set the timeline, also aids and assists in selecting people to be members of the core team throughout the process, and also keeps pushing through, keeps in contact with the OSBA facilitators to make sure that the process is staying on task. 14 is where you get all those stakeholders together. Those are the people that come in from the outside, those teachers, students, classified staff, community members, business owners. They are the members of that team, and they're the ones that participate in the 14 meetings throughout the process, which would be when you're facilitating your vision statement, your mission statement, your core values, trying to find critical issues, goals, and then coming up with some strategies and goal statements for each of those goal areas as well. The action teams are capped off there at the end when it comes to that follow-up meeting, and those are typically aligned with what the members of the design team help select the action team members as well that are going to help accomplish those goals on the day-to-day basis and help do the work to make sure that everything is monitored and progress and there's reports that are generated for you and the Board of Education. You will get all those reports and be able to evaluate the process and the progress of the strategic plan once it's been created. When it comes to the core team, again, I already had listed a handful of examples of who could be a member of the core team. Typically, all 5 school board members. It's good practice for all 5 of them to be there and be a part of the strategic planning process. Administrators, a good representative of the team there. Staff members, a combination of the teachers and the classified staff as well. Parents and people that are a member of your athletic, academic, music boosters as well, business partners, and those general community members. And it's also good sometimes to have some other outside elected officials, but it's your city people from your city council or your mayor or your township trustee to also provide their perspective as well to kind of form that partnership. When it comes to the framework and preparation, again, that design team is going to go ahead and would meet with the OSBA facilitators to talk about what the timeline would be and set a season or date to get the process kicked off and started. Also kind of what the roles are for each of the, to go into deeper detail of what the roles are for the design team, the core team, and then for the action teams at the end. Then come back and meet again once that timeline has been confirmed and talk about what the plans are for the core team meetings throughout the process. Also help out in determining the core team meeting, getting invitations out there and letters to invite those to be a part of the strategic planning process. And also talk about a community survey as well and be able to set up questions for the community to answer and talk about what they think about certain issues. Maybe think about, facilities or communication or any other type of facet of the school district as well. So they can utilize that data when it comes to finding those critical issues for the new strategic plan. When it comes to those 14 sessions, the first one is just to talk about, who are the members of the team, introduce everybody as a member of the core team to everybody as well. Talk about what is your current vision, mission, core beliefs? What do those look like? Do they need look at reviewing and revising those as well? Moving on to that second core team meeting, be coming back and looking at the work that was done in the first core team meeting with the vision, mission, and core values. Go through and see if there's one that the group can decide on for each of those. Also, this is the big meeting where it comes with the administrative team, the superintendent, talking about what does the district's data look like as far as when it comes to student achievement, comes to testing, when it comes to demographics, any of those types of academic data to go there. Also, there's usually an opportunity if the choice is to go with that community survey is where OSBA would present the results of that as well. What that looks like when it comes to each stakeholder group, if it's broken down by that area, but also the ratings, approval of certain programs. When it comes to the third core team meeting, that's when we get really into the meat about critical issues and see what people see as a hurdle, maybe an obstacle that the school will need to overcome over the next 2 or 3 years as well. And then that sets up for what can become goals to overcome those critical issues, and then be able to start working on a goal statement that are attached to those goals to help explain what that is. When it comes to the fourth core team meeting, that's usually when you come back and just confirm that those are the goal areas that the group has all settled on and the goal statements they have written in small groups and are confirmed on that. And then the groups are back into small group, the big group is back into small groups to talk about strategies and objectives, what they kind of think if they had, no obstacles, no time, no money. Think about what are some maybe objectives that they think could be help accomplish these goals. When it comes to including all the 14 meetings, then that's when OSBA would come back and meet with that design team to start working on the brochure, start getting it all prettied up, and what information that design team would like to have included in that to be able to get posted out there on the website. Talk about what the action teams are going to look like for each goal as well, and then how's the process going to be for monitoring and evaluating the work of the action teams for the Board of Education. Finally, at the end, once the brochure is all made, everything's all prettied up and all that work has been done with the design team to wrap up the process, then the plan will be presented to the board for its approval and at your disposal to either vote yes or no on that. When it comes to different timing considerations, OSBA is always flexible on anything when it comes to your timing and be able to make sure that's the best timeline when it comes to your school year. You think it's the best time to kick it off, whether it's summer or beginning of the school year, maybe it's the beginning of the calendar year as well. Make sure that you have the best interest of those stakeholder groups to participate in the 14s. But when it comes to the survey part, usually it's a good thing for OSBA more flexible on when it comes to the marketing ideas, and we're on the back end helping create the survey with the questions that are desired by you and your administrative team, but how to promote that so there's enough interest from the community to get enough responses for you to evaluate that data. And then, as I mentioned again, that calendar time is flexible at any point that you think is the best time to invite those stakeholders in to be a member of those 4 teams and go through that process. But in the end, strategic plan, as I said in the beginning, I think it's a good point to wrap up with. It's a good roadmap for you as a Board of Education. You have a path to follow, you have a path to be able to monitor and evaluate your progress, and you have a framework to set up for those big goals to be able to guide your decision making here on the school. Any questions I can answer? Also to say, what I can do is we do have a proposal document as well that I can send along to the board to you guys here, and the superintendent and treasurer as well for you to look over it. I can make sure that's sent along tomorrow so you guys have all that information.
That'd be great.
Anything else?
Is there a OSBA strategic plan template you have that you could send along with that for us to take a peek at?
As in, you
Like
go
kind of what,
with the template.
like a final document, what would the
Yes,
format-
as in a file brochure.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely do. Yes, and we have several versions of those templates. I can send along a couple examples as well for you guys to look over and evaluate.
When you're talking to your core team and you mentioned all the different types of folks,
Mhm.
do you have a number, like an ideal number?
Typically, a good number is like 30 to 40.
Okay,
Sometimes I know that, I think maybe Perrysburg would be a good, comparable to you guys with student population. They had about 50 to 60, they had about 5,000 students. I think you guys are around 4,000.
three.
Okay, so yeah, so it could be a good 40 to 50
Okay,
to invite in, and that should give you a good cross section for across all the students.
thank you.
So when you talk about the surveys that you send out, and I'm assuming they go to, are they to the community, everybody? Okay. So what kind of questions, what's an example of a question that you would ask?
Questions would be, and it's all customized to what questions you want to do, but examples would be, ratings of effectiveness of these academic programs, ratings of effectiveness of your facilities as well. And then that can be broken down between, what do the community members say? What do the teachers say? What do the classified staff say? And then you were able to look at each one of those groups and which one thinks, higher ratings are coming from, which low ratings are coming from.
So how's the response been?
Response has been really good, the ones we did in the fall. We were up at Maumee City, which is outside of Toledo, and then Amherst, which is also outside of Cleveland, and those got very good responses, and about, I think it was around 500 for Maumee, and then it was around 1,000 for Amherst. So I think it's all about tools within the marketing as well, utilizing your district website, social media, along with, whatever periodic communication vehicles you guys have here, whether it's principal newsletters or superintendent newsletters or however that works. I think as long as the marketing has a good plan for it, you're gonna get very high responses.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
Great.
All right, I just want to say thank you for
Thank you,
having
Quinn.
me.
We appreciate
Thank
you.
you so much.
Oh, yes,
you.
no
Yeah.
problem.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll move on to the Zanesville Community High School report. Mr. Young.
Okay, so Mr. Moore with the basketball change has radio duties earlier tonight, so he left me his notes. So currently enrollment is 185, with 62 of those students being exceptional ed. They have 10 who have completed all graduation requirements as of today. And they currently have 14 enrolled in the pre-apprenticeship program.
Right. Yeah.
They're holding daily potential graduate meetings with the individual students to work on where you are, where you need to be, and who you're going to be. So I'm assuming most of those meetings are conducted by Carrie. As far as the administrative items, they've completed and submitted the civil rights data collection form, and they're starting the needs assessment one plan that has a due date of late March, early April. From a financial standpoint, as enrollment continues to grow, so does the bank account down there. As you'll see, I've seen in the financial reports that you guys get. But I think they still do have plans to add a 5th teacher for next year. That would be licensed in special education, that would allow that number to kind of coincide with the total enrollment.
Thank you very much. Report of the Board of Education, approve the board minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the minutes of the Zanesville Board of Education of the organizational meeting and regular meeting on January the 9th, 2024, and work session on January 31st, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
Buchanan makes the motion.
And a second?
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wake.
Yes.
Report of the treasurer, Mr. Young.
All right, first of all, does anybody have any questions on any of the January reports? I think we somewhat have all the bank issues starting to be squared away. We're in positive pay for both the regular account and the payroll account. So we're starting to see very few exceptions that are hanging out there in those outstanding items. So that's a good thing. The budget was approved. I got it from the county late last week. So it's gone through the budget commission and the hearing, and it's been approved. Other than that, it's pretty quiet. I'll have the tax rates for you guys next month. They need to be done by April 1st. So I received those after the agenda was out. So we'll just put it on in March. And we've got a few donations there for, a couple from the Straker Foundation for classroom and elementary libraries. And then we also still had one additional donation for middle school basketball from Young Insurance, from Mr. Price.
Thank you. Let's approve those donations from $1,000 from the Straker Foundation, $4,500 from the Straker Foundation, and $350 from Young Insurance Agency. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. May I have a second?
Buchanan seconds.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade.
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
And we'll now hear from Superintendent Dr. Doug Baker.
Item 1 of the agenda, resignation certificated for the resignation of Vincent Winters, teacher at Zangray Intermediate, effective August 18th of 24. Reason for the resignation is personal. And approve the resignation of Darla Wall, teacher at Zanesville High School, effective June 1st of 2024. Reason for the resignation is retirement.
May I have a motion, please?
Lee will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 2, resignation classified. Approve the resignation of Thomas Ritchie, bus driver, effective January 26th, 24. Reasons for the resignation is personal. Approve the resignation of Chantel Farley, bus driver, effective February 2nd of 24. Reasons for the resignation is personal. Approve the resignation of Troy Baldwin, custodian at John McIntyre Elementary, effective February 7th of 24. Reason for the resignation is personal. Approve the resignation of Lisa Crosscroft, food service at Zanesville High School, effective February 15th of 24. Reason for the resignation is personal. And approve the resignation of Lacey Hiddle, special ed aide at Zane Gray Elementary, effective February 8th of 24. And the reason for the resignation is personal.
May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second?
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 3, termination classified. Approve the termination of Deborah Martin, Van 8, effective February 20th of 24.
May I have a motion, please?
Wait, will move.
And a second?
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 4, employment certificated. Approve the following certificate to personnel as listed for the 23-24 school year, pending appropriate certification requirements and background checks.
May I have a motion, please?
Buchanan will move.
And a second?
Wait, will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Item 5, employment classified. Approve the following classified personnel as listed for the 23-24 school year, pending appropriate certification requirements and background checks.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. And a second?
Buchanan will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Employment substitute, home instructors. Approve the following substitutes as listed as and when needed, including teachers, substitute aides, bus aides, food service, maintenance, and substitute secretaries, pending appropriate certification and background checks for the 23-24 school year. And approve the following home instructor as listed as and when needed, pending appropriate certification and background check for the 23-24 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second? Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 7, professional development, internal monitoring training. Approve the following teachers and administrators as listed to be paid $25 per hour for 3 hours of internal monitoring training on February 7th, 24 from 4 to 7 p.m. Training will be held at the administration building.
May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second?
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 8, volunteers. Approve the following volunteers with thanks and appreciation as listed for Zanesville City Schools for the 23-24 school year, pending appropriate background checks.
May I have a motion, please?
Wait, will move.
And a second? Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 9, FMLA leave of absence. Approve the following employees as listed for FMLA leave of absence.
May I have a motion, please?
Buchanan will make the motion.
And a second?
Wait, will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade.
Yes.
Item 10, 21st century program, teachers, approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program teachers at the rate of $40 per hour as and when needed for the 23-24 school year. Teachers will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds and/or 21st century grants and/or ESSER funds. And approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program paraprofessionals at a rate of $20 per hour as and when needed for a portion of the 23-24 school year. A's will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds and/or 21st century and/or ESSER.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move and a second.
Buchanan will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
Item 11, extended time classified. Approve the following personnel as listed for extended time for CRDC, which is the Civil Rights Data Collection. Approval is up to 30 hours at their hourly rate and will be paid by general funds.
May I have a motion, please?
Lee will move.
And a second. Clerk will move. Any discussion?
What is the civil rights data collection?
It's a federal program that we have to provide data for them each year.
Okay.
And
It's
it's
required.
required, has to do with demographic, economic disadvantage of the district and things of that sort.
And diversity.
There's some catch up from COVID,
Okay.
so it's a lot more in-depth this time.
And then we can be paid based on that amount.
Doesn't really have anything to do with any of our money other than it's a federal requirement.
Okay.
So,
So to continue to receive federal funds for our different programs, you've got to do what they.
What our population
Yes.
is. Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 12, Zanesville High School early graduation. Approve Jalen Stevenson as an early graduation candidate, subject to completing the graduation requirements effective May 25th of 24.
May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second.
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 13, supplemental contracts. Approve the following supplemental contracts as listed for the 23-24 school year, pending required certification and background check. And approve the following supplemental contracts as listed for the 24-25 school year, pending required certification and background check.
May I have a motion, please?
Wait, we'll move.
And a second.
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 14, contracts and salary notifications. Administrative and administrative support. Approve the following administrative and administrative support contracts and salary notifications as listed for the 24-25 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Buchanan moves.
And a second.
Wait, will second.
Any discussion?
What does SN stand for?
Salary notice. That means they're in the middle of a contract. That's just where they will be this year in that, on the step.
Okay, thank you.
If it has a year, then that's a brand new contract for not many years.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Item 15, memorandum of understanding with Kent State University for the College Credit Plus program. Approve the 24-25 memorandum of understanding between Zanesville High School, Zanesville City Schools, and Kent State University, which enables high school students to enroll in public college on a full-time or part-time basis, complete non-sectarian, non-remedial courses for post-secondary credit or for high school and post-secondary credit.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. And a second.
Buchanan seconds.
Any discussion? Roll call.
This is,
Oh, sorry.
well,
Go ahead.
this is in addition to OUZ and Zane State,
Yeah.
just more offerings.
More, yeah, well, just more options. You're required to do it, MOU with the colleges within 30 miles, especially if they're public, but you can do them with ones, further out than that 30-mile radius. You can do with any public institute and the state, essentially.
But this is new for us
This-
to have
this-
Kent State.
Yes, I think we may have done one with them before.
We've had it, I just don't think
Yeah.
there's been any classes.
I don't know that anybody has utilized it.
Okay, good.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
Item 16, Learnwell agreements, approved to enter into 3 separate agreements with Learnwell to provide educational services for 2 students placed in a medical facility. The cost is $48.75 per hour. Service agreement dates to begin December 20th of 23, January 9th of 2024, and January 31st of 2024.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 17, Ohio High School Athletic Association membership for 24-25, membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association for the 24-25 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second.
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 18, FAFSA 24 project addendum. Approve the attached addendum regarding FAFSA 24 project between the Muskegon County Community Foundation and Zanesville City Schools to provide space and support system at Zanesville High School for the FAFSA 24 regional coordinator.
May I have a motion, please?
Wait, will move.
And a second. Long second. Any discussion?
Is this something that we pay for or?
No.
is-
No.
part of the
yes,
guidance
There's a
council.
grant written through the Community Foundation, and that they received that grant, and as a part of that grant, they're providing us some extra help for our students to develop their financial aid paperwork or to go on to college.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 19, Reach Educational Services LLC agreement. Approve the attached agreement with Reach Educational Services LLC. Provide educational placement for one of our students for the remainder of the 23-24 school year, effective February 20th of 24 through May 22nd of 24. Cost of the student will be $25,620. The district will provide all related services.
May I have a motion, please?
Buchanan moves.
And a second.
Wait, will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade.
Yes.
Item 20, Coshocton DD agreement. Approve the attached agreement with Coshocton DD to hire an instructor and assistant to service one of our students for the 23-24 school year. Cost will be $18,000 to Zanesville City Schools.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. And a second.
Buchanan will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
Item 21, 24-25 school calendar revision. Approve the attached revision for the 24-25 school calendar.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 22, sale of buses. For the sale of bus 58, bus 64, bus 65 to Just Junket for $2,000 each for a total of $6,000. which was the highest total offer for the buses.
May I have a motion, please?
Long will move.
And a second?
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 23, policy items for approval. These were the policy items that were for review last month.
May I have a motion, please?
Wait will move.
And a second?
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
We'll go over to the addendum. Addendum item number 1, Reach Educational Services LLC agreement. Approve the attached agreement with Reach Educational Services LLC. Provide educational placement for one of our students for the remainder of the 23-24 school year, effective March 11th of 24 through May 22nd of 24. Cost per student would be $19,740. District will provide all related services, and approve the attached agreement with Reach Educational Services to provide educational placement for one of our students for the remainder of the 23-24 school year, effective March 4th of 24 through May 22nd of 24. And the cost per student would be $21,840. The district will provide all related services.
May I have a motion, please?
Buchanan will move.
And a second?
Wait will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade.
Yes.
Addendum item number 2, employment, home instructor. Approve the following home instructor as listed as and when needed, any appropriate certification and background check for the 23-24 school year.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. And a second?
Buchanan will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
Addendum item number 3, professional development, internal monitoring training. For the following teachers and administrators as listed, we pay $25 per hour for 3 hours of internal monitoring training on February 7th to 24 from 4 to 7. Training will be held at the administration building.
May I have a motion, please?
Lee will move.
And a second? Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Addendum item number 4, MVESE driver's education instructors. Approve Scott Ruby and Dan Linscott as driving instructor trainers through Muskingum Valley Educational Service Center for the purpose of providing driving training to students and driving instructors in a training status, and authorize them to drive the district-owned vehicles. There is no direct personnel cost to our district for this service. Funding for the driver's education program at Zanesville High School is funded through a grant program from the JW and MH Draker Charitable Foundation.
May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second?
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Addendum item number 5, GMP Amendment 1.2, Summit Construction Company LLC. Whereas this board approves Summit Construction Company LLC as its construction manager at risk for the construction of a pre-engineered metal multi-purpose building known as the project, and whereas Summit Construction Company LLC has presented to school district with its second guaranteed maximum price proposal for the project, and whereas the board now desires to enter into a second guaranteed maximum price amendment with Summit Construction Company LLC for the purpose of establishing, among other things, the guaranteed maximum price, contract time, and other relevant terms for this portion of the project set forth in the proposal for the second guaranteed maximum price amendment. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Zanesville City School District, Muskingum County, State of Ohio, that Section 1, approval and execution of the second guaranteed maximum price amendment. The president or vice president and treasurer of this board are hereby authorized to sign, acknowledge, and deliver in the name of and on behalf of the school district a second guaranteed maximum price amendment with Summit Construction Company LLC, substantially in the form now on file with the treasurer. The form of the amendment is approved. Such changes therein that are not materially inconsistent with the resolution and not substantially adverse to the school district and that are permitted by law and shall be approved by the superintendent and treasurer. Approval of such changes and that such changes are not materially inconsistent with this resolution and not substantially adverse to the school district shall be conclusively evidenced by the signing of the amendment by those officials. Section 2. Approval and execution of related documents and related actions. The president or vice president and treasurer of this board and superintendent or such other district officials, as shall be designated by those officials as appropriate, are each authorized and directed to sign any, certificates or documents, to take such other actions as are desirable, advisable, necessary, or appropriate to, complete the transactions and contemplated by this resolution. Section 3, prior acts ratified and confirmed. Any actions previously taken by the school district officials or agents of this board in furtherance of materials set forth in this resolution are hereby approved, ratified, and confirmed. Section 4, compliance with open meeting requirements. The board finds and determines that all formal actions of this board and any of its committees concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this board or committees, and that all deliberations, this board and any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were in meetings open to the public in compliance with the law. Section 5, captions and headings. Captions and headings in this resolution are solely for conveyance of reference and in no way define, limit, describe the scope, intent of any sections, subsections, paragraphs, subparagraphs, or clauses hereof. Reference to a section means a section in this resolution unless otherwise indicated. Section 6, effective date. The resolution shall be in full force, effective from and immediately upon its adoption.
We have a motion, please,
Wait, will move.
and a second.
Long second.
Any discussion? I know Nick
Nothing
is
has
here.
changed from the work session. It's
I'm
the
sorry.
same- It's the
Same.
same numbers that we had at the work session. So this just allows them to proceed, and then we'll work through the remaining differences as we get to that point.
This is exciting.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes. Move into, let's see, reports and items, but then into the board committee updates. Lori, legislation.
My only update Dr. Baker gave with the OSHA differences and that he gave in our Friday notes with the difference breakdown. So that was my major update. New divisions.
So, yeah. Anything with student achievement?
Just the good things that have been posted about a lot of things happening in the elementary schools with things happening in the classrooms with reading and writing and literacy. So that's exciting. And of course, tonight, our student leaders that were here, great program. And I know it's been happening for a while. So it's nice to see those leaders being developed in the elementary schools.
When I went with the sixth grade to Mideast there last week. So that was good. They had opportunity to view all those sessions and see what could happen out there. So that was good. Mike, anything with audit committee?
Audit still in review at the Auditor State's office. So once they have completed and released it, then we can move towards any questions at that point.
There's anything on the insurance at this time?
I
is
met
there?
with Mike last week.
Yeah.
We talked about some different things. So as we start preparing towards negotiations towards those things, I'm sure he would be glad to come to the meeting and let you guys know what we're looking at from a standpoint of we're still spending more than we're putting in. So at that point, we've got to make some decisions.
Buildings and grounds. I know Mindy and I were at that meeting the other day. Just some highlights of things. Project update, the multipurpose building is ongoing. They were supposed to be putting the pylons in and not sure any of that has happened. When I drove by, I didn't see anything. So, and visitor signs have been put up in all the buildings. And yeah, I think you've noticed as you've been out and about, and I think that's been very helpful. Athletic wise, coach's office in the stadium, that restroom needs an overhaul. That's something that they'll be looking at. The new video board.
We had a meeting this morning on that with Nevco. They're supposed to be sending us all the details.
And they were looking for sponsors, and I know we had one at that time, and I
One
think,
actually's come in, but he didn't tell me who.
yeah, right, he
He
hasn't said who.
He sent me an email or left me a voicemail this afternoon. I figured I'd just talk to him at the game. So, but somebody has already sent a check.
Yeah. One, and I think there's room for 5 total, I believe, for that new video board for the stadium. Field the naming with the Admiral Burke Callan. They were waiting on that to come in. I think we finally have got she had to get approval from the higher ups
Navy.
for the naming rights. And so that order for those name changes has to be put in by April so that we can have that for the August 23rd dedication, naming that field. Spring sports are getting ready to be in session, and the new track probably will wait, hopefully can wait a year. Mr. Johnson that was going to help, needs to kind of wait till that point in time. So we're trying to get through to get to another year. At the high school, HVAC system, controller has been bad, and I think they're working toward that. There was a lighting issue. People were complaining about the lights at the annex, worried about the kids that wasn't lit maybe early in the morning when they were picking up the wrestling team, and that's been addressed. At the middle school, the HVAC, they've worked on that, removed the wheels and some things in that to try to make that more functioning appropriately. Hot water boiler was fixed. We keep looking at the oven for repairing there in the middle school. They're getting old, so that's something we're looking toward possibility of replacing in the future. JME, there were some roof leaks. They've been repaired. Haven't heard anything else on the back parking lot. Parent pickup, I think, has been an issue, but I think they've been resolving that. They've come up with some ideas with the SRO officer and I think principal. They've worked some things out with that. At National Road HVAC system, again, some issues, kind of continue to have some of those problems. CGE and CGI, again, kitchen equipment. They had some roof leaks that were fixed. Still waiting on the generator parts. We've been waiting on that to get that generator up and going most of the year.
Switch gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always a switch gear.
Switch gear. We have the deputy sheriffs are now helping out at ZGE for resource officers. We're glad to have them on board. We had some roof leaks at the district office. They've been sealed. The playground for ZGE, between ZGE and ZGI, that equipment is in, and they'll start working on that when weather breaks, obviously. Potential of a couple of grants, big grants that are out there that I know the administration team is working on. So we're glad of that. Hopefully, maybe we can get some of that, which would be awesome. Football interviews are ongoing. The AEDs that have been ordered since summer, they're hopefully will be coming in at the end of the month. To add some additional ones than what we already have. And the window film at the high school that's on the brick is peeling off. So we're gonna have to take a peek at that. It doesn't look so nice.
And I had a inquiry about the tennis court backboard that was damaged, and Valencia
been-
said it was wind
Wind
damage.
damage.
They assumed it was vandalism,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's wind damage, so I'll let that person
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
asked me, and
it's removed and they gotta repair it before they can put it
Okay.
back up.
With the leaky roofs, is this on our new roofs?
Couple of them, I think. were.
It's just spots that, they've got to go back and touch up around a lot of the flashing.
Because
Stuff.
we're flat roofs, hard.
So until you get enough water that tells you there's a problem there, you don't really know there's a problem there.
Business Advisory Council, Lori and Mindy, anything on that? Speaker.
I enjoyed the Business Advisory Council because I got to meet so many people from the community, and also the different buildings shared updates of what was going on. So as new board members, it was neat to hear all the great things that are happening in our schools. And I look forward to the next one.
Next one will be April 23rd, and our guest speaker for that one will be Matt Sheridan, Superintendent of the East. He's going to be talking about our CDL partnership that we have with them, as well as the adult education program at Mid East, which is probably a little bit of an item that's overlooked for some of our graduates. And what's nice about the adult education program, we permit committees to use our field for their certificate ceremony. And they provide a Zanesville graduate with scholarship money, it's significant, to their adult education program if they choose to go there. So it's a nice partnership. It's a good win-win. So that Matt will be our speaker. We know what that means.
In the past one that I went to, they explained about the electrical program that you can earn college credit and for a career. So that was good information.
Good
to know.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Great. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, let's go into, be it resolved that the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education is adjourned at 5:35 PM. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move and a second.
Wait a second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
Yeah.